Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
We appreciate your choosing our theater. And to make this experience more enjoyable for everyone, we hope you'll refrain from talking during the show. Enjoy the movie. Thank you.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for, and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. You're watching Still Token with. My name's Leo. I'm the monkey behind the keyboard here. We have an amazing show for you. But as always, Benjamin, how's it going, bud?
It's going well. And you?
Doing okay.
See, I kept it short, sweet, and simple tonight.
You are.
You know why?
Why?
Because our guest needs a lot of time. with the career that he's had, we need all the time we can get.
Oh, hell yeah. Jeffrey.
What's up? Everybody having a good Wednesday? It is Wednesday, right? Hump day.
Last time I checked,
Wednesday.
yeah.
Right? Everybody doing good? I'm doing great. We also have a special co-host.
We do?
Yes, we do.
Who invited him?
You did.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, there was supposed to be a vote. I would have said fucking no.
Oh, my bad.
But, no, it's all good. I always love hanging out with this guy. He is absolutely incredible. So, I think he's going to mess it all up. That's my
typical.
Feelings.
That's typical.
Yeah. He likes to fuck things up.
Well, since Jeff's not going to say it, Mr. Bill Diamond is in the house. How's it going, Bill?
Good. How are you guys doing? It's great to see everyone in the start of this new year. It's great to get out there and see everyone, especially Jeff. I won't talk about the other guy.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that.
Wow. Leo, introduce our guest.
Oh, my God. You really want me to?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay. So it helps if I put the camera on.
Leo, we don't want to see the other two. We want to see our guest.
Well, I was going to introduce him, Mr. Carl Gottlieb. You know him from Jaws, The Jerk. So many awesome things. Carl, awesome to have you with us.
Are you going to put up the grid, or am I going? There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
He wants to be on Hollywood Squares.
Yeah. Now it feels right.
He's like, please take the camera off just me.
I know what I look like. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Real quick before we get too deep into anything, Leo.
Yes,
did
sir.
You see, I sent you a message. Is there a reason why the chats aren't coming up? Not that it matters, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. Okay, we can go on with the show. You can deal with that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So, Jeffrey, go ahead. Why don't you kick this off, because I know you're itching to.
Well, yeah. I mean, first I want to say that, Carl, thank you very much. You've made me paranoid to go swimming for a long time. I own a little cabin up on a lake up in Maine,
which is wonderful.
Yes, and I grew up water skiing, and as a kid, every time I fell in that water, I always thought there was something under my feet. So thank you for that, asshole.
Yeah, for 45 years, whenever I meet anyone, they generally begin and when I tell them that I wrote the Fish movie, that I worked on it.
The Fish movie.
First, I'm just tired of saying Jaws.
Right.
But the first thing, when I tell them I wrote the Fish movie, they tell me, I didn't go in the water. After I saw that, I didn't go in the water. And they have a story similar to yours. And it is literally the first thing they say. And for 45 years, I've been nodding and smiling and say, yes, I know.
Hey, Carl, you and I have a mutual friend.
Who's that?
Roger Castell.
Oh, the guy who did the famous poster and cover.
Yeah, Roger and I have known each other for a very long time, and I have, of course, a couple of pieces of Roger's work here. We've known each other for a long time. Plus, I know Susan, who was, of course, the first victim in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's a dear friend of mine. So we have a number of friends that were part of that great creation of yours.
I know, and Roger is kind of chagrined because the original artwork has disappeared. Nobody knows who's got the.
And that's funny because he keeps on asking, where is it? And he did the wonderful Empire. Was it Empire Strikes Back? Yeah, Gone with the Wind piece. And he keeps every time I would go to Roger's house, and now he lives up in Massachusetts. He used to live down by me here in the Hudson Valley. He would keep on saying, I'm hoping that turns up somewhere in one of my one of my paintings somewhere. He's been looking for it for eons.
I know.
He's doing well.
Good, I'm glad.
All right. Cool.
So, okay, look at that. We talked about the Fish movie. We got that out of the way. Now we can move on to bigger and better things, like the amazing career that this gentleman has had.
I reserve the right to ask more Fish movie questions later on.
You can ask as many Fish movie questions as you like.
Actually, Leo,
I come on these shows with the expectation I'm going to be asked about the Fish movie side.
Leo, you can ask those questions when we're rolling the credits, all right?
Okay, sounds good.
Well, if the closing credits are anything like the opening credits, we got like 11 minutes or something like that.
That's why I told him to go there.
Actually, the closing credits are really fast. I think it's like 32 seconds or something.
Okay, the opening credits are long.
Well, yeah, but we had to make it long because we've explained this to people before. We are going live on 13 tonight. We added a new network over the weekend, so we're on 13 networks worldwide.
Good, great.
So it takes a little time to push to everything.
Hello, world.
The famous fish. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he's got so much else to offer.
He
and
does.
I
He
have
does.
friends that he knows that are friends of mine. Do you know Chris Kiska, Carl?
Yes, I do.
Chris and I have been good friends for years. Chris used to have all his Jaws stuff in my studio here in Hudson Valley.
Oh, okay.
So Carl was just plugging his book. Tell us a little bit
Right.
about the book.
It's a great book.
It is. It's the best-selling book about the making of a movie ever. It came out originally when the movie came out in '75, and it's been a steady bestseller ever since. I regained the copyright somewhere after 25 years, and we put out a 25th anniversary edition with notes, and I got to add a lot of material that was not in the original book, and then I had a lot of end notes and a lot of discussion, and then we had a couple of different formats, and the format that I held up now is the most recent, and it's kind of mislabeled on Amazon. It says it includes the script. It does not include the script. There's no shooting script in there, but otherwise it's a good description of the book, and I'm happy that people are still buying it and reading about it.
Now,
you know, I mean-
Brian, just real quick, Brian Singer considers that a director's Bible.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Brian was an early enthusiast. So was Steven Soderbergh.
Nice.
Now,
Jeff?
I'm curious about one thing. When go back to '75, when you were writing the screenplay, did you get to have interaction with Peter Benchley, who actually wrote the book?
No, not really. No. By the time when I came on the picture, Benchley had been out of it for a while. He had written his drafts of the screenplay as part of the book deal. In order to get him more money, they let him write a screenplay, and it wasn't very good. And then they hired Howard Sackler to rewrite Peter Benchley, and that's the draft that I inherited, was the Sackler draft. And Sackler, for whatever reason, didn't want to arbitrate for screen credit. So when the dust cleared, it was a screenplay by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb.
Okay, all right. No, I was curious. I mean, I was 12 when
No.
that movie came out,
You're a
and
kid.
I wanted to see it.
You're a kid,
And my parents, they said, you know what? We'll bring you to this movie, but you have to read the fucking book first.
Yeah, well, it's and then you see the movie and you realize how different it is from the book.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've watched every shark movie that I can possibly find, looking for something to compare it to, and there's no comparison.
No.
Okay, well, this man has such a wide range of accomplishments. So we
he
need
does.
to move past the shark.
I tried to do that at 10 minutes into the show. It's
Well,
okay.
I'm helping you here since
Thank you,
I'm your
Bill.
director. I'm pushing you through.
I do want to say to Carl, thank you for your service. I read that, and we always thank our veterans and first responders here. So thank you for that. But yeah, let's go way back to the beginning. Back to the 1960s. You started writing for comedy on TV with the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
Oh my God.
Oh, I can't say that. He doesn't want me to say that word. I almost did. I almost said it.
What?
How was it being a part of something like that and winning an Emmy to boot?
Yeah, it was a great debut in television. I had come to LA as a member of the committee, which was an improvisational review, and we played at the Tiffany Theater on the Sunset Strip.
Oh, I know where that is. Yeah.
Yeah, we did the 6 nights a week at the Tiffany, 13
Wow.
shows a week, and of course, since we were in town, a lot of people came and saw us, and we got hired for stuff. I got hired. Robert Altman hired me to do the movie of MASH. And
Young Robert. Yeah.
then a group of us young, clever writers got hired by the Smothers Brothers, and our test run was the Glenn Campbell Summer Show. It was called the Summer Brothers Smothers Show. Because in those days, if you had a successful network series, they gave you your time slot with a much reduced license fee, and you could produce your own replacement, whatever you wanted to put on. And the tendency was to get a hit musical act and give them a television show. So there was Glenn Campbell, the Fifth Dimension had a show. There was a lot of people got shows as a result of that. But Glenn Campbell got a show. It was his debut. And me and Steve Martin and Bob Einstein and Paul Wayne and Lorenzo Music, a whole bunch of us got our start. We got our Writers Guild cards on that Glenn Campbell show. And then when the summer was over, the Smothers Brothers picked us all up for their big winter CBS show. And then that show, we did very well. But then that show was canceled because Tommy and Network couldn't agree on stuff, on censorship issues. And then after we were canceled, we won the Emmy, which was kind of unusual for a canceled show to win the Emmy. Wow. We displaced Laugh-In for Best Comedy Variety Musical.
Wow.
And I must say it was very satisfying to be at the awards ceremony. And they said, and for the Emmy goes to the Best Comedy, and the Laugh-In people were already standing up to walk on stage. And when they said Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, and we got to go up on stage, ha.
I love that.
Claim the award.
Wow. So I know I can see the smoke coming out of Jeff and Leo's ears right now. Go ahead. One of you go ahead. I'll let you.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you've written for The Odd Couple, Flip Wilson, Dean Martin, Bob Newhart. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I was big in television, and then I transitioned to features, starting with the Fish movie. I mean, Jaws was my first produced feature film.
Right.
Couldn't think of a better way to start, except it's a little daunting to have the film become an icon because you can't plan for that. Nobody plans for a film to be a hit for 45 years. So all you could. At the time, it was a difficult location shoot that went over budget and over schedule, and it was a classic studio production. It was a Universal picture with all the baggage that the studio brings to it, and nonetheless, we managed to succeed in the face of a whole bunch of obstacles, and the result, lives on, and it keeps generating income. So I can't complain.
Right. But then you did it again.
Yes.
With another classic called The Jerk.
Yep. If I was a Jeopardy category, it would be his hits begin with a J.
That was a shameless plug for the Jeopardy folks. I'm sure somebody out there knows them and they're watching us. So
right.
So a lot of your works gear more towards comedic. How difficult it is, how more difficult it is to write for comedy as opposed to, the Fish movie being, like a horror-esque movie.
I think it was, trying to remember the famous writer who first said this, but the apocryphal story is that I think it was an actor named Monty Woolley, a guy who played in Miracle on 34th Street. I think he played Santa. Anyway, somebody he was sick and dying. He was old, and somebody came to visit with him and said, "Is it hard? Your situation?" And he replied, "Dying is easy. Comedy is hard."
Touche. Wow.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely.
Right.
So I've always been lucky for some reason or another. I've always had a kind of a iconoclastic attitude and a healthy urban skepticism from growing up in New York City and
Where in New York did you grow up?
Washington Heights, in Manhattan, in the Heights.
Yeah.
Just like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was in the little northern enclave of Washington Heights near Fort Tryon Park.
Yep, I know it. I know.
187th Street, and that's where I grew up. I used to walk across the George Washington Bridge with my dad every Sunday. We'd walk over to Jersey side, then walk down to the river.
I'm a Yonkers kid.
Huh?
I'm a Yonkers kid.
Yeah, we used to walk up the river to around 212th Street. There used to be a ferry at Dyckman Street, and we would take the ferry. We'd walk across the bridge, walk upriver along the Palisades, and down to the river, catch the ferry boat back to Manhattan, and it would come out in Riverdale, almost Yonkers.
Yep.
Then we'd get on the subway and come home.
Good old McLean Avenue. We were over by the Yonkers Raceway.
Yeah. And when later
These young kids up at the top there,
when we were when we were kids, if somebody could borrow a parent's car or somebody had a car, we used to drive to Adventurers Inn. Do you remember that? On the
I used to go over to Playland, remember?
Yeah.
Well, and I used to take the T from Riverside into Boston.
It's the Carl and Bill show.
Good for you. Remember Playland?
I didn't go much to Playland. My amusement park of choice was Palisades Park.
Oh, I love Palisades. There's a lot of stuff in Palisades. Yeah, one of my dear friends, Cortland Holt, just restored the old carousel at Palisades.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got to see that when we were down at the Witch's Dungeon.
Yep.
Yeah, he was restoring that.
He was restoring the Palisades carousel.
Yep.
Because it's been there for a while. And Palisades is known. The Palisades Park was known for Big, the movie Big.
Yeah. And of course, I remember Bill Miller's Riviera, which was the only nightclub in New York that actually looked like a nightclub. But it was on the Jersey side in Englewood Cliffs, just right over the bridge. There used to be a very lavish nightclub called Bill Miller's Riviera.
So I suppose you're a Yankee fan, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I can say that because I do a lot of stuff for the Yankees, which I'm doing right now, some stuff for the Yankees.
If you want to have your heart broken, my dad was an immigrant. He came from Russia, and he was a high school student. He went to DeWitt Clinton High School in Manhattan when it used to be on 56th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And he played flute. He was a flautist, and he was a ringer. He played in the Western Union Band.
Wow.
And that band played at Yankee Stadium for the ball games. That was before the organ.
Wow. Yeah.
They would play da 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 da. That was done live with the band. And whenever somebody and the band was right on the third baseline, just behind the dugout. And anytime anybody dribbled a foul over in that direction, one of the band guys would jump out, pick up the ball, jump down to the dugout, get the guys to sign it, and he'd have a signed baseball.
Wow.
And I asked my dad, "Did you ever do that?" He said, "No." He said, "I played soccer. I didn't know anything about baseball. I was a European." I said,
"Are you a baseball fan?"
You could have had I could have had a base. If my father had seen fit to do so, I could have had a baseball autographed by the 1927 New York Yankees.
Wow.
Ruth, Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, on Murderers Row.
Right.
Wow. So, are you still a Yankees fan?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, what's that old?
Well, if you ever want to go to a game, let me know.
You'll never get rich betting against Joe Louis, the Yankees, or Notre Dame. Is what I grew up with.
I have to take those guys up the top to a Yankee game. I do a lot of stuff for the New York Yankees. So.
Oh, okay. God bless you.
If you took me to a Yankees game, you'd have to
wear a
build
Red Sox hat.
You'd have to build a coffin because when I got home, my wife would murder me.
Well, actually, if you just said that you were Jeter, the Red Sox would love you because they love Jeter.
I loved going to the Yankee Stadium for the annual Army Navy football game.
Yep.
That was a real spectacle because the
They
contingent
do a great job.
schools would the rest of us civilians would take our places in the stands, and then at some point they would the gates would open and in would come the entire contingent from West Point in perfect step
and
trotting up to filing into the stands in perfect order, filling up the rows one by one by one, and then the Navy would come in on the other side. It was quite a spectacle.
Wow.
And Carl, I'm right next to West Point. That's where I'm located. West Point's right up on the hill from me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're near Sneeden's Landing up around there, right?
Yeah, I'm in Cornwall on the Hudson.
Oh yeah.
West Point is right up on Storm King, on the other side of Storm King.
You're on the other side. Which side of the river are you on? East side of the west?
I'm on the West Point side.
The wrong side.
West side, yeah.
The wrong side.
Not the wrong side. If you ask West Point, it's the right side.
Poor Leo's over here going, really? They went into sports on me? I was really ready to dork out tonight.
Plenty of time to dork out. Plenty of time.
Speaking of time,
yes, sir.
Where can they find out more about this amazing guest that we have?
It's about that time, huh?
It's about that time.
About that time. It's about that time.
What was the question?
Well, actually, we have some bills to pay, so we're going to talk a little bit about sponsors just for a minute. So don't go anywhere. We still have a ton of show left.
I'll be sitting right here.
But we got a couple ads here, some awesome stuff going on. Check it out.
Greetings, Spice fans! Silk City Hot Sauce is now sponsoring the Dorkening Podcast Network. Our craft sauces are made in Vermont in small, high-quality batches using locally sourced, farm-grown ingredients. Silk City Hot Sauce comes in a variety of heat strengths and killer flavors like Jezebel, Erotic Fever, Mango Madness, and Good Morning Jonestown. And don't forget our newest creation, Hot Syrup. Make no mistake, Spice fans, this is the queen of sweet heat. There's new and unique flavors coming out all the time. Best of all, right now, listeners of the Dorkening Podcast Network can go to silkcityhotsauce.com and use coupon code DORK. Not only will you get 20% off your order, we'll also throw in a free bottle of hot sauce. That's silkcityhotsauce.com. Coupon code DORK.
Thank you for supporting Actors and Others for Animals. We started a long, long time ago. So when you find an organization like Actors and Others for Animals, it sort of unites all of those of us who want to pay back something for all the joy we get out of animals. Please keep up the good work. Believe me, it's deeply appreciated.
And you can learn more about all our sponsors and everything in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And there we go.
Thank you, Leo.
You're welcome.
I took a nap. Thank you.
I love the Betty White tribute. I really do.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, that was sent to us by good friends over at Harlan Ball Public Relations. It was set to be released on the 1st of the year. Unfortunately, Betty passed on the 31st. They went back and forth on whether or not to release it. He sent it to a few select people and asked if we could share it around. And, it was an honor.
Yep.
It was an honor.
Indeed.
So, but back to our amazing guest.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Playland. You mentioned it a couple times. Is that the place that HBO did a documentary on, like the really dangerous theme park? Or no?
I don't know.
No, I think that was in Hull, Massachusetts, called Paragon.
Okay.
Playland is probably one of the oldest in the East Coast.
Okay.
It's been around since the early turn of the century.
Yeah, Coney Island and Palisades were the two, and then it was Rye Playland, I think, up in Rye Beach, toward the Yonkers area. There was another. But that was it. There weren't a lot of amusement parks.
I know Jeff has a question that's just he's itching to ask, so I'm gonna allow.
Well,
him.
no, actually, I was just going to throw out a comment that though they're talking about all these old amusement parks and stuff, and I grew up, going to Hull, riding the old wooden roller coaster. You know what I mean? I mean, back in those days, everybody liked to ride wood.
Yeah.
Carl ignored him. He's up in the top box of Hollywood Square. We put an X in front of him.
Yeah. So when you were working on the Jerk, was Steve Martin already cast, or while you were writing, did you have him in mind, or any particular actor? Or
no, the Jerk was a Steve Martin project. The way that came about was Steve had done a very successful concert at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which was kind of unusual for a nightclub act for him. And he sold it out, whatever it was, 2,500 seats, 2,800 seats. He sold it out, and people were wearing bunny ears and arrows through the head and white suits. So it was clear that he was a phenomenon on the way up. So David Picker, who was at that point president of Paramount Pictures and was a third-generation movie guy. David Picker's grandfather ran a Nickelodeon in Boston at the turn of the last century, like 1905.
Wow.
And then David Picker's father was in distribution with United Artists, and then David Picker himself. So when he took over Paramount, he was an executive with, deep roots in the business. And he was a Steve Martin fan, and he signed Steve to a Paramount for a 3-picture deal. And then Steve came to me and said, listen, I got this 3-picture deal. I got to write a script. I've never written a script before. You've done Jaws, and then you did a Richard Pryor movie. You've done a comedy. So would you like to collaborate on whatever it is we're going to write, whatever it is I'm going to write? So I said, sure. And the notion was that we would write a screenplay, but Picker and Paramount would also finance a short film, like an 8-minute one-reeler. And in the old Hollywood days, when they were bringing up a new talent like Steve, they would, put them in a couple of B movies as a second banana comic, like a Jack Oakey kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Then they would graduate to, if they were good, they would graduate to starring in features of their own, like Abbott and Costello. But as it turns out, we did a short subject on the Paramount lot called The Absent-Minded Waiter, which I directed, which was nominated for an Academy Award.
Wow.
And in 1975, I think. And I was feeling pretty good about that, and I thought I was kind of on track to direct the feature. But then it came time to do a rewrite of the script, and I was I think I was unavailable. So they hired Michael Elias, who was known to Steve and myself, to do the rewrite. So Michael did the rewrite, and the credits on The Jerk after the smoke and dust had cleared was screenplay, story by Carl Gottlieb and Steve Martin, screenplay by Steve Martin, Carl Gottlieb, and Michael Elias. He shares, and that's a correct evaluation of the credits. And the way the movie came to be written is, they gave Steve and I an office in the writers' building at Paramount, and we'd show up in the morning, and they had a couple of IBM Selectrics and yellow pads and a little bucket of pencils freshly sharpened. And we sit there in the office and look at each other and go, I don't know, do you have any ideas? I don't know, do you have any ideas? And it went like that for a couple of weeks. And then Steve said, my managers think that everybody's interested in money, so it should be about money. So we said, okay, it'll be about money. Silence, then more. Then Steve at one point said, there's a line in my act that always gets a laugh, whether the act is doing well or not. It's like a saver. So it's like a surefire line. I hate to give it up because, once you use it in media, you can't use it in your act anymore. But anyway, he says, the line that always works is, I was born a poor black child.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's
so
true.
We looked at each other and said, wait a second. What if you were born a poor black child? And we started writing the first scenes of The Jerk, the ones that take place in the house in the Mississippi Delta with
That's
John's
awesome.
family. We started writing right there, and then after that, it just flowed, and one thing led to another. And when we were through, we had this script.
Wow. That's great.
And then they hired
That's
Carl Returns, and he put his own
Did you live out in LA at that time?
Yeah, I've lived in LA since the 60s. I mean, I was drafted in the Army in 61. I got out in 63. I went to San Francisco, joined the committee. The committee came to LA in 66 or 68. I came with them, and I was in the show that opened at the Tiffany, and from there, everything's kind of followed naturally from there.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Paramount lot because I would have to go to the Gene Roddenberry building.
Sure.
Yeah. So I know, and I had met Steve on the Warner Brothers lot when he was doing a movie called Gotham.
Oh.
Not the series, just it was a movie Gotham. Yeah, Gremlins 2 was being filmed at that time. So I had walked over to the Gotham lot and I met Steve there. So it was kind of interesting. But I know the Warner Brother lot pretty well.
Well, it's the Bill and Carl show.
Yeah.
we're old. Well, he's not. He's young. I'm older than you guys.
That's true. That's true. You are.
Not by much. Not by much.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So, how did it come about that you ended up doing a whole ton of cameos in some of the classic shows that I grew up with?
Oh, well, I was always an actor. I mean, people knew my work from the committee, and Gary Marshall was a fan, and he had 2 or 3 shows on Paramount lot. And I would work as an actor whenever I could. I mean, it's although I'm a writer, director, producer, all those things. If you ask me which of those things I like to do the most, I like acting because it's the least demanding and, in terms of ego, the most rewarding.
Right.
and physically, it's the easiest. You know, you show up.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. Physically,
you don't
it's
pay attention
very
to me.
demanding.
Be quiet.
No, you show up, you go to your trailer, you eat snacks from the craft.
You haven't worked with Bill.
AD comes and gets you. You go to the set, you hit your marks, you say your lines, you go back to your trailer.
See,
don't pay attention to the
Hold
guy
on.
behind the curtain.
Hold on, I got to say something. Did you hear what he said, Jeffrey? You hit your marks. If you don't hit your mark, that's why you get a concussion.
Yeah.
Well, nobody put a mark in the truck tire that I rolled.
Look, unless there's a bottle of whiskey on that mark, you ain't gonna find it.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, because I mean, I was looking you up, and it's like, I mean, I grew up watching the shows, you know, Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy and all the rest of them. I mean, that was my generation. That's,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, I was doing the research because that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going over this with my wife, and she's like, "Really, really, really? Who is this guy?"
Hey, Carl, I just want to let you know that the three guys that are at the top of your screen there, if you're seeing the screen the way I am, they are one of the most, the two there and the one who runs the show are one of the most, they're young, they're green, but they're the most creative young guys I have met in a long time. And I've been in this industry for close to 50 years.
How much whiskey did you have tonight?
You be quiet. And they've done an incredible amount of work. So when they started launching these podcasts and these shows, they have really tapped into a lot of friends of mine that are probably friends of yours too, and they've done an incredible. They'll each owe me $20 when this is over with, but incredible work to really tap into the incredible work someone like you have done. So my hat's off to at least two of them. I won't tell them who.
So Jeff brought up your acting. Yeah. See, I'm moving on, Bill.
Okay,
thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
One of the things I did read.
Nice segue, man.
One of the things I did read is that you appeared on Saturday Night Live in a Muppet skit. Yep.
No, I don't think so. I made a couple of little appearances on Saturday Night Live. I made one appearance in an Albert Brooks short film. I wrote a visual.
Somebody has to update his Wikipedia, folks.
I know that I wrote a sketch that Saturday Night Live filmed.
Well, the Muppets were only involved in the first two or 3 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't think I ever.
And actually, I think I saw that on your IMDb page.
Yeah, it was on IMDb too.
That you appeared in a cameo on Saturday Night Live in a Muppet segment.
Well,
I wanted to bring that up because
maybe he was just a puppet.
I have no recollection of it, and which is not to say that it didn't happen.
Well, the only thing that the Muppets did on Saturday Night Live was land the gourds, and that was in the first 2-3 years of Saturday Night Live, and they really didn't have guests on them.
Okay, back to the fish.
They kind of threw that in there. And that was when I think Steve was on it, but it was Bellucci and I'm trying to think who else was on it. But that was in the 70s. This is before my time with.
I always had close ties to Saturday Night Live because I worked on a Flip Wilson special that Lorne Michaels produced.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Flip Wilson guest stars were Richard Pryor, Lily Tomlin, and Peter Sellers.
Oh, the classics.
Martha Reeves,
God.
musical act. And I did that show, and then
good old Studio 8H.
Yeah, and we had a lot to Lauren and I had a lot to talk about. We talked about he said, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be doing a show, and it's probably going to be live. Do you want to come? You want to do the show? I need a senior writer, the Herb Sargent part. And I talked to my wife about it, and it's one of the few career decisions I always revisit. I made ultimately the right choice, but it would have been interesting to have gone and been part of that first 5 years of Saturday Night Live. But by the time their 5-year run was over and they all came to LA to be in the movies, I was already in the movies. I'd done Jaws, I had done Which Way Is Up. I was getting screenplay jobs with 6 figures. So, I did the right thing by staying in LA, but I always wonder what it would have been like. Because Saturday Night Live, that cast had the best of all worlds. They were the hottest ticket on Broadway, which meant you were a New York institution, and you were a national institution, which meant if you were on a plane going coast to coast, they would bump you up to first, or they would take good care of you. So you had the best of media stardom and being a local hit, like a Broadway hit. So you could
right.
Right. So I wanted to ask you a question because there's a couple of things that really infatuate me, and that's the moon. I love to look at the moon. It's different phases, etc.
Who among us doesn't? Okay.
And I love Amazon women. So Amazon women on the moon.
Yeah.
Really?
What do you mean, really? Shut the fuck up, Bill.
What are you drinking tonight, buddy?
Amazon Women on the Moon was I had a contract. I was at Universal, and Landis was putting together Amazon Women,
Landis?
and they were like, I was asked to direct some of it, so I did. I directed like 3 or 4 segments. One of which was cut, but is in the DVD release. It's Chekhov on wires. The flying version of Chekhov. It's a scene from Uncle Vanya, and all the actors are on wires, so they're flying from side to side of the stage as they're doing their dialogue. It was an interesting conceit.
Okay, well, I just had to ask about that.
And it was the first nude I had ever directed, Monique Gabrielle, and of course the Son of the Invisible Man, which was great fun.
Oh God!
Yeah, and the sale of antiquities and art. Anyway, I'm kind of proud of my connection with that film.
That was
nice. I'm glad I brought it up.
Expecting from you, Jeffrey.
Hey, I love Amazon Women, and I love
Jeff. I'm amazed.
I'm almost impressed with him tonight.
Well, I was.
Ben, don't get.
It involved nudity too, apparently.
It involved very much nudity, and the fabulous Lana Clarkson was in it. She's the woman that fucking Phil Spector killed. So it was the intersection of a lot of things.
Very cool.
You did say intersection, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Take another sip, whatever you're drinking.
Go ahead, Leo. I know you want to say something.
Oh, well, actually, I got a bunch of questions, but I didn't want to,
No, go, Leo.
Well, it also involves the fish movie that.
All right, we'll get back to that.
Fish.
We have to go back to the fish movie. He's got much more than the fish movie.
We'll get to the fish movie.
I know he has much more, but there's very interesting things. Like,
okay, we'll get to that 1 minute.
Okay.
There's one more subject that we really have to touch on because Carl has written a book, but he's also been a co-writer on somebody else's books. Jeff, you were going to ask the question, so would you like to do that?
David Crosby. What?
Yeah.
David Crosby, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. That must have been a dream.
Well, David and I go back to the 60s in New York when the Byrds, I was at the committee, which was at 622 Broadway in North Beach, San Francisco, and just up the street at a go-go club called the Peppermint Tree or the Peppermint Lounge.
More nudity, right? Go-go.
The Byrds were the house band at this topless go-go bar. so David and I met because I would go up to look at the naked girls, and the birds were playing, and David and I became pals then.
Wow.
And then they finished their gig, and they bought a station wagon, I think, from Odetta, who had just finished her tour in San Francisco. So they bought Odetta's station wagon, loaded the birds and all their equipment into the station wagon, and drove south to LA. Then we said goodbye. And then the birds get to LA, and they're driving down Sunset Boulevard, listening to KRLA, which at that time was the top 40 rocker. And they hear Mr. Tambourine Man, which they had recorded a few months earlier in LA with Jim Dixon. So they go, holy shit, we're being played on the radio. We're on AM radio.
Wow.
Top 40. And then the announcer comes on and says, this never happens. But the phones have lit up and we've gotten so many calls. We're going to play that again. And they played Mr. Tambourine Man a second time on a top 40 format station. So they, at that moment, they knew they were stars, and they became the Birds.
That's awesome.
Because David's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with two different bands. First with the Birds, and then later with CSN and CSNY. So, and when we got to LA with the committee in '68. David had been thrown out of the Birds and hadn't formed CSN yet. So he'd come around, we'd come around and hang around the theater with us, and he'd do a sketch or two because he was a frustrated actor. He always wanted to be an actor first. And he went into folk music because he could get the chicks that way.
It's all about the girls.
Right?
And he had this, this preternaturally perfect voice for harmony, which, to this day is unequaled. So,
right.
Agreed.
So that was a very happy collaboration. And then in '88, during the writer's strike, I was co-chair of the Writers Guild Negotiating Committee, and we went out on the longest strike in Guild history for more than 100 days. But simultaneously with that, we were getting some nibbles about writing Crosby's life story, and we got a huge advance, which enabled us to go and write. So instead of waiting for the strike to end, I went off with David and we wrote.
Nice.
Right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
That is awesome.
Can they still get that book?
Oh yeah, it's very much in print.
Yeah, you can check the show notes up above and down below. I'm sure there's a link to the
Okay.
Amazon where you can get
I'm
that
just
book.
making sure so everybody knows out there.
Absolutely. But
So
see,
and I know Leo's going to cut us off in a few seconds, and I'm going to take over from
No,
Ben.
he's not.
But let us know about your book that's out now.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, the 30th anniversary of the Jaws book.
Yeah, it's the same book. It's just that's the book that I held up a few minutes ago.
Is there anything new added to it from 30 years ago?
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff. There's a long explication of how the Indianapolis scene came to be written, and I have found out since then, if there's ever another edition, I'll have to add this tidbit of information, is that in the famous Indianapolis speech, Howard Sackler stole a couple of pages from a book called Shark Attack, which was published back in the 60s. And the whole Herbie Robinson anecdote is reproduced by Sackler that he cribbed from this book about sharks.
So when Discovery does Shark Week, does that kind of help push the book?
Oh yeah, I mean, I point it out to anybody who listens that at any given moment, it's always Shark Week somewhere on the planet. I mean, you just go, any station in the world, if
I always thought Shark Week was about women on their cycle.
No. You can mute him at any time, Leo.
Yeah, Leo, pay no attention to him, the guy up in the corner.
I mean,
Discovery Channel.
I'm just going to say Shark Week for
No,
me
I
is a little
do. I
different.
do.
Well, there
Like I
is.
said, I watch everything Shark.
Just so you know, Chris Cresco, who has one of the largest shark collections.
Yeah.
And Chris has opened in LA a Jaws. I guess he's in part with somebody with the Jaws Museum. We used to have it in the studio, and Chris was there. We would do a number of we did on Comic Book Men. They used to come and see the shark and all of Chris's stuff. And Roger Castell would come down. So and Sue I would see now and then at a number of the Comic-Cons, and I've known her for a long time.
She's indefatigable. She's everywhere.
She is everywhere. She is an unbelievable. I've known her for like 30 years. She was on the movie
she was on the movie for 4 days, and she's made a career and made.
She's a sweetheart.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars being first victim.
So it's a real testament to all your work and everyone else that's been involved with it.
Right.
Over the years.
See how we did that, Leo? We brought it back to the fish movie for you.
Go ahead, Leo. Ask your question.
What's your question,
Dorko,
Leo?
brother, Dorko.
Jeez. Well, I have several questions. You know, the first one
That's
starting.
why we have several answers. Although I will before I start answering, let me share a brief Spielberg anecdote.
Please do.
When Spielberg became famous after Jaws, of course, he got to meet his idol Federico Fellini in Europe because he was touring Europe for Jaws. So he meets Fellini, and he says, Maestro, I have a question about one of your movies that I've always meant, if I ever met you, I was going to ask you this question. So Fellini says, wait. He says, I have to tell you. He says, I give a different answer every time to questions. He says, I always make up a different answer because the paparazzi, you're going to find out because you're now famous. You're going to find out they always ask the same questions because they have the same material. They get the same press book, the same material. They all ask the same questions. And if you give the same answer all the time, you get bored and you give a boring answer. And if you give a boring answer, they print a boring interview and nobody's interested. So I just make up new stuff every time. So I keep my responses are always fresh and spontaneous, but I don't know what's true and what's not true anymore. I make it all up.
So the moral to that story, Leo, is he's going to lie to you.
That's okay.
I try to be truthful, but
it's all bullshit.
It's easier. I mean, obviously, I've given many of the same answers at the same time. And here's where being an actor comes in handy because I can act as if I've never heard the question before. Oh, really? What was it like to be? Well, okay. Anyway.
Well, we were told before the show started we could not use "what was it like."
Yes.
During the show.
So now, Leo, what can I answer for you?
Yes, sir. So I'm wondering about the difficulties because when you and Steven started this off, you had 3 weeks, from what I understand, before shooting.
Yep.
So, dealing with that limited amount of time, but also I read that you cut part of your own part out.
Yep.
Was that due to the time constraints or was that to fit the story better?
Well, it was a result of several things, but what actually happened, I was doing in the script that we started shooting. Ben Gardner's boat is discovered on the open ocean by the editor of the newspaper and the oceanographer and somebody else. Anyway, Owen Scheider, Scheider and Dreyfus and me are on a boat looking for Ben Gardner, and we find him. And when we go to pull the boats alongside, I fall in the water. The actor misjudges distance and center of gravity, and I go over the side into the water on 3 cameras rolling, and they all capture me going into the water and bobbing up and climbing back on board. But because I was a secondary character, they did not have doubles of my wardrobe. They just had the one suit that I was wearing when I went in the water. And rather than wait for it to dry out and lose a half day, Steven said, well, fuck it, move on. We'll figure out what to do with this later. So we moved on. We scrapped the scene. And then later, much later in the movie, when the company got back to LA, that scene was picked up in the tank at Universal on the back lot. And it was a much better scene because it was just Dreyfuss and what's his name? Dreyfuss and Scheider and discovering, the boat. So it was more effective, and when it was done that way. But in the meantime, I was the one who, if you look at the early release prints of Jaws, I have co-star billing with Lorraine Gary and Murray Hamilton. That's how big my part was when I got the job. But then after I fell in the water and that scene was cut, my part got smaller, and I just, kept writing for the smaller part.
No, I just thought it was because you didn't want to get eaten.
No, I don't like deep water any more than anybody else does.
Right.
So Carl, I have something to share with you.
Yes.
If we can, I just pulled it off the wall in the office, and the guys have probably seen it, but I know Leo hasn't seen it. So let's see if I can get it on screen and you recognize it. Let's see.
Oh yeah, that's working.
You know that gentleman there?
That's Joe Alves.
Joel and I we've known each other for a long time, and the shark that's not working all the time. Joel is incredible. He's a great guy, and I just had to share that with you.
Yeah, Joe Alves is fabulous. The thing I love about doing conventions and fan shows is that it's usually me and Joe and Susan, and occasionally Jeff, and they give us a table to ourselves, and we sell all our stuff, and the people come over.
Yeah, we probably have met at a convention a couple of times because I'm usually with Chris.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So and Joel, so we probably have met at a few Comic-Cons.
Yeah.
So speaking of the shark not working, with all the
nice segue, Leo.
Well, with the production difficulties of that they had during shooting, and you're doing your rewrite process while they're filming, what were some of the items that were cut that you really wanted to get into the movie, but you had to write out because of production issues?
Actually, there's nothing left out that we didn't want. There's nothing left out that we wanted to be in the movie. What we left out was all the extra baggage. The mafia subplot, the mayor is a real estate developer. It was just a whole lot of baggage. The love affair between Ellen Brody has an affair with the oceanographer.
Oh, this is the part that was ripped out of the book when I went to read it. My parents ripped that out of the book.
Yeah,
the page is missing when they gave me the book and said, read the book before we go take you to the movie. Those are the pages that were missing.
Jeff, I need to interrupt. When you got the book, it was just a cover.
Yeah, pretty much so.
I just
It
can't.
was just the 3 guys and the fish. 3 men and a fish. That was enough.
3 men and a fish.
3 men and a fish.
That's the follow-up. Go ahead,
Excellent,
Leo.
excellent.
I'm Leo. I gave you the floor.
Go ahead, Leo.
I don't usually do this because Leo's the producer. He's the monkey behind the keyboard. But I know he's super dorking out, and
absolutely love it. I also read that you're responsible for bringing Richard Dreyfuss onto the movie.
Yes, he had read the script and had passed on it. He had read the Sackler draft, and he's passed saying, "This is a movie I'd rather see than be in."
Really?
So now Stephen and I are in Boston. I'm starting to break down the script, and all we have is Scheider. We don't have Quint, and we don't have Hooper. So there were 3 actors that would have been great for Quint. Robert Shaw was one of them, but also Lee Marvin would have been wonderful, and and Sterling Hayden would have been wonderful. It would have been a wonderful movie with either of those 3 actors. But Lee Marvin was sport fishing in Baja California, and he said, "Why would I quit doing what I love fishing to go and play a fisherman, which is bullshit." No, pass. And Sterling Hayden couldn't take the job because he owed the IRS a ton of money, and any salary that he got would have gone straight to pay his back taxes. Why he became an author, because they couldn't attach his royalties, but they could attach his salary, so he couldn't work for wages. So we were left with it was not a terrible chore. Zanuck and Brown had a relationship with Shaw because he had been so effective in The Sting, so they asked him to be in it, and he imposed a lot of conditions. He made a lot more money than the other actors because he had taxes to pay, and he was a British subject, and if he stayed in the U.S. longer than 90 days, he had to pay U.S. taxes. Anyways, it was a big deal. But anyway, so we got Shaw, and we still didn't have Dreyfuss. So I called my wife. I said, "Do you know where Richard is?" And she did a little research, and she called me back. She says, "You're in luck. He's in New York promoting Duty Kravitz. He's on a promotional tour." So I reached Richard in New York. I said, "You got to come up to Boston and meet with Stephen." And Richard says, I passed on that movie. I said, "I'm rewriting it. It's all different. It's not the same movie you read the script for. Just meet." So Ricky came up to Boston and walked into the hotel room where Stephen and I were interviewing local actors for local parts. And he was dressed in that denim jacket, rimless glasses, and a scruffy beard and a watch cap. And Stephen took one look at him. He said, "Don't change a thing. Keep the jacket, keep the glasses." And we talked him into doing the movie. And he left that meeting agreeing to have done the film. And there's a joke that came out of that meeting that's in the movie that I'm very happy to have captured. There were styrofoam cups in the hotel because Holiday Inn was a cheap movie and Zanuck and Brown were cheap, stingy producers. And so at one point, Ricky crushes a plastic cup. And I said, what would be funny if Quint the He-Man crushed a beer can and you crushed a plastic cup? Yeah, that's funny. Put that in the script. And it went in the script, and it's a big laugh in the movie.
And that's a memorable scene, right?
Yes. Well, there's so many memorable scenes from that movie, and
we were lucky.
I have to tell you, Jaws is one of my all-time favorite movies. Absolutely, ever since it scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. With it being so many memorable scenes, and having your insider view, do you get a chance to watch it as a fan? And if you do, what are some of your favorite scenes?
Occasionally, if I'm doing a show and they're screening Jaws, I sometimes I MC the Q&A or I introduce the film. I'm there for the event, and I usually get a seat in the back so I can walk in the lobby and set up my table to sell books when the audience comes out. But every now and then I'll sit down and watch the movie, and I enjoy it for even though I know where all the laughs are and all the screams and everything else. I have a couple of favorite scenes that because they're my favorites because they're performed as written. The actors didn't ad lib. One is where Mrs. Kintner slaps Scheider and says, "My boy is dead." And the other one is when Dreyfuss is arguing with the mayor, says, I pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of that boat. And the mayor says, "Do you have the tooth?" And Dreyfuss has to admit that he lost it. And that whole scene, look at me. I'm arguing with a guy who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I love that piece of dialogue. And Dreyfus delivers the goods. So I enjoy watching when my words come to life. In that respect, I'm no different than any other writer. I have to applaud actors for bringing life to characters.
Right.
I'm gonna
By the way,
step on you, Ben, for a second.
Go ahead.
If that's okay. So, out of all your work over the years, what is one of your favorites?
oh, it's Sophie's Choice. You love all your children. You're not going
There you go.
to.
Good answer.
They all have something. Or I wouldn't have done them in the first place.
Well, no, absolutely.
So they've all got something, and it's hardly any that are
I'm going to flip that question.
unredeemable.
Yeah. Is there anything you did that you wish you didn't?
Yeah, talk to you.
No, I did. I posed for a semi-nude poster in San Francisco back in the day. I have some copies of it. It's a pretty silly-looking poster.
Is it like a fireman's calendar or something like that?
Well, it was a post. Some photographer had an idea that if he did a poster, he could cash in on it. So he did a poster with me and a nude girl on a motorcycle.
Okay, now you're going to make a fortune on this because there's going to be a rush for it.
I was going to say the same thing. People are already online trying to find this to bring to conventions.
Well, forget that. It's already an NFT.
The subtitle for the poster is "Hi, HIGH." I don't know if I have it. Let me see if I have a copy handy. I'm going to leave the frame for a minute.
Okay. Hopefully, with your next fortune.
Bill, maybe you can answer Billy's question while we wait. He was asking, didn't the fish Bruce get destroyed on the back of the set over the years?
There were a number of them. And do you know who Bruce is named after?
Bruce Raymer. Yeah.
No. Yeah, well, it's true. But who was that? Well, you would know, but we always
there you go. Nice.
There you go.
How do I get one of those?
There are stores across the country right now digging through their archives going, we got to get these out because, oh, yeah, the price just went up.
We were always told that was Spielberg's lawyer. Is that correct?
Yes, Bruce Raymer.
Yep.
Yep.
It was Spielberg's lawyer Bruce was named after.
Yep.
Oh, so Spielberg named the fish after his lawyer, and we
That's
threw
correct.
we got to throw our lawyer in the Hudson.
That's true. And it's funny because I don't know if I know Bela Lugosi Jr. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a lawyer. And I always said, Bela playing Dracula, his dad was a lawyer. He went after a lawyer, and then you became a lawyer. So both of you are bloodsuckers.
So
there you go.
There was another question there that came into the chat too, Leo, if you want to pull that.
Yeah. So Ty Matthews is asking, how did you get involved with Jaws 3D?
Well, the same thing happened with after Jaws. The iron law of sequels is only the last one loses money. So there was going to be a sequel. There was no question about that. And they approached me to write it, and I didn't want to do it. Stephen was not going to do it. He was already on to doing prepping Close Encounters. Joe was doing Close Encounters. So I passed on it, and I remember saying, because they offered me scale, which seemed to be insulting, but that was Zanuck and Brown. They were stingy bastards. So I said to my agent, scale, these guys made $100 million on there. They had 40% of the profits. Fuck scale. They'll be back, and it's going to cost them. So sure enough, they started shooting. They had a script written that was ineffective, and they started shooting, and they realized that they were in trouble because the director was way out of his depth. So they approached me, and they said, can you salvage this? And it's kind of the same conditions as the first one. It was like 3 or 4 weeks before principal photography. They didn't like the script. They didn't like some of the actors. They had to recast. Luckily, there was a hiatus built into the schedule where the company would they would shoot just second unit up in Martha's Vineyard. Then they were going to go down and shoot the rest of the movie in Florida, where the water was much warmer and more predictable, and it was a bit better place for the shark to work. So they added a week to the hiatus and gave me that time to start the rewrite. And I came up with a format that they liked, and Verna appreciated it. So I had this idea for a cruising culture, based on San Fernando Valley car culture, but with boats. And that worked. That worked for the teenagers, worked for everything. So that became the movie. Let me see who this is.
Probably your agent saying, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Carl, it's your next Jaws movie.
No, it's Veterans Administration.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so where was I? So I, with a short time to go, I flew to Florida and took up a residence in the Holiday Inn where the whole company was shooting, or living, and started the rewrite. And stayed there until the rewrite was finished, and then went home. And they made the movie. And I had some. They still would not give me any points, but they gave me a profit part. They gave me escalating series of bonuses if they hit certain grosses. Mm-hmm. So I got statements. I got to see what the movie was actually grossing, because at certain points in the gross, I would get another payment.
Wow!
Because I was kind of a profit participant. So I made good money on it, and I was not ashamed of it. In its time, it was the most popular sequel until Godfather 2.
Right. So, Leo, you have another show tonight, don't you?
I do.
Okay, so couple more quick questions and then wrap.
Well, tell you what, last question I'll have for you. Going from the original movie to the sequels, what was your headcanon for an area having multiple sharks of that size?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's what was in writing the you wrote the screenplay for the first one, second one, and then you were brought in for the third one. With multiple sharks, did you have something in your head of why this was happening, or maybe I'm phrasing it wrong?
No. Well, let me answer with something Sid Sheinberg said. He says, you have people over to your house for dinner, you serve roast beef. Next time you invite them for dinner, they're expecting roast beef, so you serve roast beef. You serve the same thing you served the last time. So with the fish movie, it's no different. You gave them the fish. You're inviting them back. You got to give them more fish. So it was just a question of how do we, work the big shark into the film. And in Jaws 2, it was easy because he kills the water skier and gets his face burned in the process. So now you've got a scarred, mean shark. So that it works for the story. It works for the picture. So we go with it.
You change the recipe of the fish.
Yeah, that
Slightly.
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 A little more turmeric, a little less paprika.
Right. All I'm going to say is I am from Massachusetts. So is Jeff. I've been on the vineyard 100 times. My cousin's husband was a lieutenant in the fire department down there for a long time, so we spent a lot of time down there. I've always brought the kids and the wife down to the bridge, and they've all jumped, but they've all come back.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
You couldn't leave the fish? I'm just asking. You couldn't leave the fish?
Oh, Jeff, you're too much.
So anybody else up here have a quick question for him? Because we do have to let Leo wrap things up so that he can get to his next show. And Carl's probably like, geez, this is the longest ass interview I've ever. I'm gonna kill that Joyner guy.
No, you guys are entertaining.
Good. Well, it's a pleasure having you, Carl. It really is. We have mutual friends, so that's kind of nice.
Jeffrey, anything else in that demented little mind of yours?
No, I'm good.
You content?
And I will put it out there, Carl. If you ever decide to come to the Hudson Valley, you want to go see a Yankee game, or you want to go to West Point, the boys can set you up with that.
We'll hook you right up.
When I was 16 or 17, me and 4 or 5 of my friends from Washington Heights, we took our bicycles up to West Point. We drove our bikes up to West Point, stayed outside the point, went on the grounds, toured the point, watched the evening formation and all that stuff, and then pedaled back to New York.
Well, anytime, my office is right by the point, so you're always welcome.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that if the British fleet tries to sail up the Hudson to take Albany, you guys are there with the chain to stop them.
We are right to the Bannerman Island. We can run it right across.
Oh, Bannerman Island! Don't get me started. When I was a kid, one of my favorite books that I had a Francis X. Bannerman catalog from 1939.
Wow.
I bet you did. I did the documentary on Bannerman Island, and I'm connected with them regularly. So if you ever want to go out there, I have
I went to Bannerman's when they had the store on West Broadway in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I bought some stuff for my grammar school graduations. We did a big musical number, and I went to Bannerman's and I bought 20 police helmets, those old style British Bobby helmets, and nightsticks. I bought a bunch of those.
Well, we have a boat to get out there, from what I've been told.
And what I remember most was about that catalog was the prices, the things that they were selling. They were selling 1873 Winchester rifles for $12 and Colt 45 Peacemakers single action Army Colts for $6 and $7.
There goes Bill.
And I had a beautiful Confederate CSA belt buckle made by Tiffany that I bought there. I love Bannerman's. I couldn't afford. I had a 12-year-old's allowance, but
right.
I loved Bannerman's, and I understand the island was closed because it was just so much unexploded ordnance on the island. There were bombs and things that had never been set off.
From what I heard, that was one of the reasons why.
One of the reasons, yeah. But like Bill said before, his phone died on him, because that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
He is connected with Bannerman. He is right down the street from West Point. If one of these times you want to come out to the East Coast, maybe you can make it a weekend thing. You come out to the East Coast, you go to the Army Navy game at West Point.
We'll see.
I have relatives that do that. Well, until this thing shut the world down.
This has changed everything. So.
Right. But you have my email.
Okay.
Just catalog that email, save it, and if it ever happens, and We know how to get a hold of Mr. Diamond, and
Sorry, I'm back.
Did your phone die?
No, a call came in. But anyway, I wanted to say to Carl, if you ever want to go on the Bannerman Island, Jeff and I and Ben, and if Leo wants to come, we can always take you out there. We're connected with them. We'd be more than happy to take you to West Point. And
I may take you up on that, but it'll be in the years to come.
I just told him the same thing. I said, make it a weekend. Come down, go to the Army-Navy game, and then go out to Bannerman.
Absolutely. We can make that happen.
Okay.
So, all right, Leo, I know you got another show, brother, so why don't you go ahead and start wrapping
Yes,
this up real
sir.
quick.
Yes, sir. Smile, you son of a bitch. Okay, so just had to get that in.
He's been waiting an hour and a half to say
I
that.
know. I just love it. Okay, so for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not gonna say which is which, but more importantly, if you check the show notes up above or down below, you're gonna find a ton of information about our awesome guests and also the awesome people as Still Token with. And for me, just head on over to thedorkening.com. I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. We got about 40 shows on a network. A lot of awesome people doing a lot of awesome stuff, including Dead Dork Radio, which is live right now. You can listen right on your phone. Just go to Live 365, search for Dead Dork Radio. And Carl, where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
Facebook.
Cool beans.
I love it. It was just Facebook, guys.
Yeah. How about you, Bill? Bill, where'd you go?
All right.
Jeffrey.
just like at the studio, it's like, where the hell did Bill go? I don't know. He was there a minute ago, and then he's fucking gone. You can Google me if you want. It's all going to be a bunch of crap anyway. I'm on Facebook. You don't want to try and find me. Go to stilltoken.com. That's where all our info is. That's what everything that you need to know about us. Token with the Dead. That's it. Episode 2 is now out and available on Vimeo. And I want to say next week.
Thank you.
Next week we had to shift the show. It's going to be on Tuesday. It's going to be at 6:00. This is one you are not gonna want to miss.
They don't want to miss any of our shows. If you miss the night
this one's
show,
kind of special to me.
Well, right, but if they miss the night show,
this one's special to me.
If you've missed any of our shows, you can find it at stilltoking.com. They're all there for you to view. They're all on our Facebooks, multiple Facebook channels, YouTubes, Twitches. They're up on IMDb. You can find us everywhere. But like Jeff said, stilltoking.com. We want to thank Carl again for taking the time out tonight and hanging out with us. We'd just like to ask him to hang tight while Leo closes the show before he disappears on us. And to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do every day so people like us can do what we do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. We're out of here. Remember, Tuesday night, 6:00.
Okay.
Peace out.
Hey!